All right, 6 o'clock. Good evening, everyone. First of all, I would like to, due to the COVID-19 pandemic emergency, we have to handle these meetings differently than we usually do it, due to the safety of the staff, due to the safety of the public, and safety of the council. Now I would like to City Manager, Mr. Haglund, to in a brief explanation to the public.
Good evening. This meeting of the Galt City Council is being conducted by teleconference, video conference in compliance with the state and county stay-at-home orders and as allowed by the governor's executive order N-29-20, which allows for a deviation of teleconference rules required by the Brown Act. Members of the public will see the council members and city staff who are appearing via remote video or telephone connections. City council meetings will be held by teleconference or video conference only until further notice. Today's agenda states that rather than attending in person, residents can submit written public comments via email to pubcom, that's PUBCOM, at cityofgalt.org prior to the council meeting. Any written comments will be read aloud by the city clerk during the city council meeting on the appropriate agenda item, subject to the customary 5-minute time limit. We will try to check the email for additional public comments during the meeting if feasible, and we are looking at ways to expand the options for public comments at future meetings. So any member of the public can submit to pubcom, PUBCOM, at cityofgalt.org for public comment prior to the public comment coming up next on the agenda. Or written comments for any item that appears on the agenda. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Haglund. Call the meeting to order. Tina, may I have a roll call, please?
Vice Mayor Lozano.
Here.
Councilmember Farmer.
Here.
Councilmember Campion.
Here.
Councilmember Lamson. Here. Mayor Sandu.
Here. Please rise for the silent prayer and flag salute. Flag salute. I pledge allegiance
to the flag
of the United States
of America
and to the republic for which stands
one
nation under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Tina, may I have a replay statement, please?
This meeting of the Galt City Council will be cablecast on Metro Cable 14, the local government affairs channel on the Comcast Consolidated Communications and AT&T Verse Cable Systems. The meeting is closed captioned and webcast at www.zacmetrocable.tv. Today's meeting will air Friday, April 24th at 9 a.m. and Saturday, April 25th at 9 a.m. A DVD copy is available for checkout from any library branch.
Thank you. Any comment? Next agenda item B, council, any agenda approval, addition or deletion?
Mr. Mayor, I would like to pull item F2 and F6.
F2 and F6. All right, the next agenda item C, presentation. There is no presentation. Next agenda item D, public comment.
Under Government Code Section 54954.3, members of the public may address the City Council on non-agenda items. The public comment section is for the City Council to receive comments, except for brief responses to questions. No discussion or action may be taken on any item that is not listed on the agenda. Please limit comments to a maximum of 5 minutes. Due to the statewide emergency and social distancing guidelines, public comments may be submitted via email to pubcom@cityofgalt.org and will be read out loud, subject to the customary 5-minute time limitation. At this time, we do not have any public comments.
Thank you. Next item is E, report by city council members on regional board, commissions, and committees. Vice Mayor Lozano.
Yeah, just a quick report. We had a SACOG meeting last Thursday, and there wasn't a whole lot to report out. It was done by live stream, such as our meeting today. And look forward to budget information coming forward from SACOG in the next meeting, and some other miscellaneous items in the future. So that's all I have to report.
Thank you. Councilmember Farmer.
Nothing except that I have a Sacramento County Public Library Authority meeting on Thursday, and we'll be following up with some decisions we made about closing the library and paying and staff and things like that. So I'll report back at the next meeting on how that went.
Thank you. Councilmember Campion.
Nothing. Likewise, I have a meeting next Monday I'll be able to report on with South Sacramento County Joint Powers Authority.
Thank you. Councilmember Lampson.
Yes, the Sacramento Air Quality Board had a quick special meeting to get to the approval to apply for some grant deadlines that were happening. So we had to have a meeting. I do have a Zoom meeting with them on Thursday, and I will take notes and let you know more. We've canceled the Youth Commission meeting, but we do have some business we need to take care of. So we're working on seeing if we can conduct our business with our Zoom meeting during our regular time. And I will keep you guys posted on that. That's it.
Thank you. And I have nothing to report on the regional board meeting. Next agenda item is F, consent calendar. I think Councilmember Farmer pulled that F2 and F6. And I would like to approve the consent calendar except F2 and F6. If we do have a motion on that.
So moved.
Second.
Who's moved?
Kurt.
The motion moved by Councilmember Campion and second by Vice Mayor Lozano. May I have a roll call vote, please.
Vice Mayor Lozano,
Aye.
Councilmember Farmer,
Aye.
Councilmember Campion,
Aye.
Councilmember Lampson,
Aye.
Mayor Sandu.
Aye. Motion passed 5-0. Thank you. So the next agenda item F2, subject receive and file warrant for period ending April 7, 2020. This is Councilmember Farmer.
Yeah, I apologize, Claire, I didn't send you this in advance. I just had a quick question. On the warrants, you've highlighted a group of payments that look like they were voided, and I just wanted to know why those were voided, or the things we didn't have. Can you just explain that to me real quick?
Sure. We, from time to time, will have problems with our system, and we'll have to void and reissue some. And we do a thorough review of the batches. And if it's picked up something that either there's a problem with the check printing or whatever it is, they get voided before we send out. So we have two sections, one in each check run of that. And it's kind of at the beginning of the check run. It happens, old equipment.
All right, thank you. Thanks, Claire.
Yeah.
Any other discussion on this agenda item? So if not, I may have a motion on that, please.
So moved.
Motion moved by Council Member Farmer
Second.
and second by,
Campion.
second by Campion. Tina, may I have a roll call vote, please?
Vice Mayor Lozano,
Aye.
Councilmember Farmer,
Can't hear. Yeah, that's fine.
Councilmember Campion,
Aye.
Councilmember Lamson,
Aye.
Mayor Sandu.
Aye, motion passed 5-0. Thank you. The next agenda item is F6. That's Council Member Farmer.
Mr. Mayor, if I could real quick, I did also want to pull that item. I have a couple of questions that I spoke with Mr. Selling about earlier, and I think it would be beneficial, his answers would be beneficial to the rest of the council and the public.
Okay, which one do you want to pull?
No, the F6, I just wanted to
Okay,
make it known that I wanted to pull that as well.
thank you.
Do you want, Vice Mayor, do you want Mike Selling to go ahead and answer that before, or do you want me to answer?
No, that's fine, Sean. I just wanted to point that out ahead of time.
I just had a quick question, Mike. I was looking through the staff report, and on Exhibit A, it lists the proposed list that can be picked from for the SB1 money, right? That's the Exhibit A?
Correct.
Okay. So I know that these aren't everything that gets done. We would pick and choose depending on how much money we have off this list. But there's a spot in town that I just have for years. It just seems like it's in poor condition, and I never see it and I don't see it on this list. And that's B Street. B Street is terrible, especially between 5th and 7th. There's a lot of potholes, and I'm just wondering when we would be circling around to take care of that. I don't see it on this list.
So what I can do is, excuse me, I'll check with staff. We keep a database basically on what the condition of all of our roadway segments are. I'll see where it's at as far as the the condition index. Basically, it's a 0 to excuse me, 0 to 100 scale. 100 being a brand new perfect road, and 0 being dirt. So we'll see where it rates and see what the priority is, and I can get back to the council probably through the city manager or however you'd like to report back on the status of B Street. The other thing I guess I would point out too to the council is the state, when they made this requirement, they were very flexible. Essentially, what they really want is at least to give them some list of potential projects. We're not locked in. We can do whatever portion of this. We can do things that aren't on this list even. So we could potentially do B Street, if that's the direction that we get. So it's not just a really strict requirement. So, but we'll take a look, and then I can report back on the status of B Street and where it might be in the programming.
Okay, that was my concern, and I know that in the past, Mr. Clarkson had familiarized me with the rating of the streets. I know some of these streets on here, and I actually went down them, and they're comparing those with B's like really bad compared to some of these, so that's why I was wondering why some of these are on the list and that wasn't. So
right,
add something like that on the list, that'd be great. I just didn't know if we were like locked in and we couldn't detour from the list once it was submitted.
Yeah, no, we're not locked in by any measure. And the other thing, some of the factors that we look at, obviously the condition, but then, as you can well imagine, with the funding that we have and the needs, it's a triage situation. So we look at, what volumes of traffic are on a given road, and there's some, desire to kind of spread it around town too, and not just have it all be in one location. So things like that get taken into consideration too. It's a bit of subjectivity, I guess, is what I want to say. So.
All right, thank you, Mike.
Sure. I think Vice Mayor.
Vice Mayor Lozano, do you have any question on this one? Or?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I got a little carried away with my mute unmute button there. Real quick, Mike and I had a conversation via email this weekend, and it had to do with this and the city anticipating about $500,000 in revenue from the SB1 funds. And my questions were, what is the total amount on the list that we have, understanding that it's flexible and we're not locked into it, but just to kind of get a sense of what the SB1 funds will cover. How does that compare to the total list? And then the other piece was, and that actually Mike brought up, was, we have in the fiscal analysis and staff report, we pull from all these different transportation funds, but the reality, I think, is, I don't know that this 500,000 is going to be 500,000 in the end, given the economic uncertainty, given the COVID-19 issue. So, Mike, could you just kind of briefly talk about what we discussed? And I think it's real important to understand that, member Farmer's concern was, were we locked into this? No, but we also, I don't think, are going to get as much money from it as we believe.
Sure. Yeah, Vice Mayor Lozano, as I kind of indicated, this is one of multiple transportation revenues that we receive. This is the bulk of our maintenance money, though, SB1. And so the 500,000, yeah, it's certainly going to be probably reduced. We'll know more what the governors may revise. We've asked the state and the Sacramento Transportation Authority, SACOG, and basically they're all saying, the governors may revise is what everybody's kind of waiting for. So it would be, probably premature to try to guess. We could take our own guess at what it might be, but I think that's, everybody wants to be consistent, and so we'll be waiting for that. Certainly less. But as far as the total cost of the projects that we listed, it's around $2.1 million, what's shown on that list there. We may get better bids too. It's hard to say. So even though our funding gets reduced, we may get better prices too. So it may be a bit of a wash. We'll have to see. But and typically, in order to do that, we try to bid in the fall, so we do get better prices, and then construction next spring and summer. So, but that's kind of where we are. And as you noted, we will typically cobble these funds with other sources, whether that's Measure A or a state gas tax. We may have some grant opportunity money too that may come along. So it'll depend. As you may recall, on the street project that we did last year, we did what's called an additive bid, where we can specify additional work that we can do if we get good bid prices. And so that's another way that we try to maximize the funding that we have in order to get more work done if we get good bid prices. So hope that answered your question.
Yes, it did. And I thank you for being accessible after hours. I know some of the emails I got from you were well after work hours. I appreciate that.
Oh, sure.
And I just thought it was important for not only the balance of the council and staff to hear, but also for the public. That you may see 500,000, but at the end of the day, just kind of depending on the economy and what happens, and like you pointed out, our buying power at the end when we decide to go out to bid is going to be real important as well. So I thought that was just important for people to hear. And if there's no further discussion on this item, I'd like to move it for approval.
I did have one quick comment, and I don't know if it's relative or not. It's more directed towards city attorney. But is there any, Kimberly, are you there? Hello?
I think she's muted.
Kimberly's here. She's on mute.
Oh, there we go. Sorry.
There we
I thought I only had to unmute my phone.
I know,
I'm here.
I know that like later on the agenda, we have a public hearing. And there are certain rules and regs as it relates to proximity to your home or business in terms of voting. And I know, Sean, I just know that your business is near B Street. I don't know how close or whatever, but is there any form of a conflict of interest on members of the council voting on these road improvements, or is it because it benefits the entire community? I'm just curious.
Yeah, so usually as long as the project is more of a general one like these with the SB1 grants, it's not usually an issue because you have the public generally exception. If it's one that's a big project that's usually more targeted towards a specific project, like if this was the 4th Street improvement and your business was there, then we'd have to look at the distance requirements, which the FPPC has amended and of course, made more difficult frankly, to apply. 500 feet, 1,000 feet, depending on the circumstances, but I don't see I think the public generally exception would apply here.
Okay, just curious. That was all I had.
Thank you. Any other discussion among the council member? May I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, motion by Vice Mayor Lozano and second by Council Member Lamson. Tina, may I have a roll call vote, please?
Vice Mayor Lozano,
Aye.
Councilmember Farmer,
Aye.
Councilmember Campion,
Aye.
Councilmember Lamson,
Aye.
Mayor Sandu.
Aye. Motion carried with 5-0. Thank you. Next agenda item is schedule matter notice of public hearing. Subject 1, Cardoso second subdivision project. Is Community Development Director.
Yes, sir. Good evening, Mayor and council members. Chris Arias, the Community Development Director. As mentioned, the project you have before you is the Cardoso 2 subdivision project. We're asking the council tonight to receive the staff report presentation, open a public hearing, and then upon closing the public hearing, adopt a resolution that adopts the initial study mitigated negative declaration and also the mitigation monitoring and reporting program for the project. And we're asking you to introduce the ordinance amending the zoning map, waiving the full reading, and then continuing to the next regular meeting for adoption. And then finally, adopt a resolution conditionally approving the tentative subdivision map for the project. Cindy Ganos, with our contract planning firm, Rainey Planning and Management, she'll provide the staff report presentation. The applicant, Aiden Berry with the True Life Companies, is also on the line. So after Cindy is finished with the presentation, the applicant and staff will be available to answer any questions you might have. So at this point, I'll turn it over to Cindy.
Thank you, Chris. Mayor and council members, the Cardoso 2 project, you can, next slide please, is located south of Cost Road and west of the Union Pacific Railroad tracks. The general plan designates the site open space and low density residential. The current zoning of the site is open space and R1A. The necessary entitlements for this development include a rezone, a tentative subdivision map. Next slide. The proposed map subdivides the 25-acre site into 85 single-family lots and creates a remainder lot of about 34 acres for future open space to the south of the subdivision. The 87 lots range from 6,500 square feet to 11,431 square feet, which results in a density of 3.53 units per acre. Next slide. In order to accommodate the 6,500 square foot lots, the applicant is requesting a rezone. The R1A zoning has a 10,000 square foot minimum lot size, while the R1C zoning requested by the applicant has a 6,500 square foot minimum lot size. The density of the 3.53 units per acre is consistent with the low density residential general plan designation, which allows a range between 0 and 6. The R1C zoning is consistent with the Cardoso 1 subdivision that was approved to the north, as well as the subdivisions surrounding that Cardoso 1. The rezone also shifts the open space line on the site to match the development and the open space and adds an open space designation along the railroad tracks. Next slide. So in terms of access, the project connects to Cost Road at Maria Way, which is being extended south to Cost Road by the Cardoso 1 subdivision. And then a secondary access to Cost Road is provided as an emergency vehicle access as you head towards the railroad tracks. The applicant is being required to make roadway improvements, including travel lanes, turn lanes, bike lanes, sidewalks, and landscaping. The map also includes a future connection of a circle to the property to the west once it's annexed, or if it's annexed and developed in the city. The subdivision will have an 8-foot wall next to the tracks that wraps around the corners, as discussed in the mitigated negative declaration. And there's also a 6-foot wall along Cost Road for the development. Next slide. For parks and open space, Cardoso 2 requires 1.41 acres of parkland based upon the number of units and the projected number of people per unit. Lot C on the map goes through the middle of the site at a diagonal, and it includes a Class 1 recreation trail. This trail connects to a Class 2 bike trail on Cost Road and the proposed Class 1 trail that's along Lot D on the southern portion of the site. This trail and open space connection, staff has determined meets the requirements for the 1.41 acres of parkland, even though it's not an official park. The trail connections provide a benefit to the surrounding area. We've also added a condition approval that Lot D, which is the trail along the southern portion, connect all the way to the western property line so that if that property does develop, we can continue the trails that direction. Next slide. We prepared an initial study mitigated negative declaration for the project and found that the project will not have any significant impacts on the environment. We included mitigation measures for biology, cultural and tribal resources, geology and soils, hazards, hydrology, water quality, and noise. The public review period lasted for 30 days, beginning of February to the beginning of March. We received 3 comment letters, but they weren't specific, saying that the initial study was inadequate. So next slide, the Planning Commission held a public hearing on March 12th and recommended that City Council approve the initial study mitigated negative declaration, adopt the mitigation monitoring and reporting program, approve the rezone and the tentative subdivision map, subject to the findings that are in the staff report and the conditions of approval. And next slide. So with that, Planning Commission and staff recommend that City Council take the actions listed on this slide as outlined in your staff report. And Chris and I are available if you have any questions.
If we have questions, can we ask them now?
Up to the mayor.
Yeah, we want it one by one. Start from the Vice Mayor Lozano. Did you have any question on that?
I do. Just a couple of quick questions in regards to the landscape corridors and the recreation areas. And my question is more of, is this something that the developer is going to build and install, or are we collecting fees in lieu of, and are we going to build it in the future?
The developer is responsible for building all on-site improvements, including the trails and the detention basins that are shown on the map. So they will construct that as part of their subdivision improvements.
Okay. And so my other question is this: how are we going to maintain that, and what lighting and landscape area is that going to be covered, and can we afford it?
The answer is yes. So as you know, in the past, it's always been a challenge to maintain some of these areas. But we do believe with our new community facilities district, it will be sufficient enough to not only cover the maintenance costs associated with the development, but also other city costs as well. And later in this meeting, you are going to get a presentation on our new development CFD, which will kind of talk about some of those issues. So this project is conditioned to join that CFD. It will not annex into any existing CFD or lighting and landscape district, and instead go to that new development CFD.
Okay, I appreciate that explanation. The only other question I had is, maybe I just didn't see it. I'm sure it's in here. The sound wall that's going to be to the east, I believe. How tall is that going to be?
Cindy, is that 8 foot?
8 feet.
Okay. All right. I have no other questions. Thank you.
Any other council member have any? All right, Farmer.
Actually, I had the exact same questions as Rich. One was the maintenance on the open space, but Chris, you answered that clearly. So thank you for asking that, Rich. And then my second question is regarding the sound wall. I was curious. I know on the subdivision on the east side of the railroad tracks, that would basically be directly across from this, there where the water tank is. I know the sound wall on that backing up to the railroad tracks is very tall. I mean, it looks to be like 15 or 20 feet. I was curious why only an 8-foot wall on this subdivision. Is there an elevation difference to start with, or what is the reason for that?
I don't know I don't know the background on the other wall. We did have a noise study prepared, and it was the recommendation of our noise consultant that the wall be 8 feet.
Because I know it's right next to the tracks. It's really loud. I actually know some people that live on the other street. I don't know I don't have the street handy in front of me, but I'm sure, Chris, you know which I'm talking about.
You know, just I'm wondering if there might be an elevation change, and I don't recall the specifics of the project on the east side, but there might be a setback difference as well.
There's a substantial difference in distance and elevation.
Right.
That's the reason that you have a higher wall. That's why it was conditioned that way.
That's what I was wondering, if it was just an elevation difference to start with. I know it's lower on the other side. I have another question. Let me look through my notes here. So the easement, you talked about an easement for emergency vehicles. Is that basically where the dirt road is now that goes along the railroad tracks? Is that going to be that emergency easement?
No. If you if you have a copy of the map in front of you, the road that is immediately south of Cost Road that runs parallel with Cost, toward the eastern end of that where it bends, prior to the bend, there's an emergency vehicle access to Cost Road, which will be paved. So it would be paved and developed access road, and not, we can't have a dirt road as an access point.
Is that between lots 38 and 39? It's hard to read, but.
Right.
No, it's blurry.
No, it's between 18 and 19. So you had some of the numbers.
Part of it right.
You were close.
So my last question is, the 34 acres that's remaining to the south, that is open for future development, or is that going to remain green space? I didn't miss that part of the presentation.
No, it's zoned open space and will remain open space. The majority of it, if not all of it, is in the flood zone. So there's no development opportunity in that parcel.
And that butts up to the county line. Is that where the county line is?
That's correct. So butts Dry Creek and the county line.
Okay. Was there any questions when this went through planning? What were some of the questions that came up with planning? Was there anything that they asked that you can recall?
Cindy, I don't think there
The
was.
main, they didn't ask questions and no one from the public spoke at the hearing. The main issue that they discussed was connecting under the tracks along the creek and whether that was feasible or not.
For the bike trail, you mean?
Right.
And is that is going to be connected?
No, not with a paved portion. Currently, the trail, there is kind of a dirt trail that goes underneath the train track, but we don't have plans to complete that connection. That would take, substantial work with the railroad and really beyond the capability of the development to put together. So I think, as a city, we would have to look at that when we're updating our next bicycle master plan. And even if that's feasible.
Okay. I think that's all the questions I had. Thank you, Cindy. Thanks, Chris.
I do have one comment, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, go ahead, Councilmember.
Yeah, and I talked to Community Development Director Chris Arias on this. And it has to, and it's not a big deal. It's on the conditions of approval, condition number A19, which relates to the open space parcel that the property owner wishes to continue to farm, which is fine. The way it reads is that the property has to be offered for dedication within 2 years of the final map's approval, and that farming operations are to cease once the farming operations cease. All future uses must conform. And when I talked to Chris, I would just like to see some language added in that agreement that, it doesn't go to successors or heirs or in the form of an LLC. I mean, once this owner actually stops farming, that should be the end of it, just so it's very clear. We don't necessarily want to continue a farming operation next to residential if possible. So.
No, and I agree 100% with that comment that we should have included that and have no problem including that language, because that really was our intent as well, is that once the current farmer ceased his operations, that farming operations would cease on the parcel. So we will firm up that language, with the condition of, or with the approval of the council when moving forward.
That is all I had.
All right, Councilmember Lamson, do you have anything on that?
Well, I had some questions that I wrote down, but Rich Lozano asked them also. Thank you. I was just concerned about having a park that we had to maintain, and thank you, Chris, for having the foresight to make sure that is affordable these days.
All right, thank you. Chris, I have a couple of comment or question. There's this land, 25 acre, right? This have a, excuse me, the zone is R1A and they're going to change to R1C, right?
Correct.
And R1A is at 10,000 square foot?
Correct.
And R1C is 65,000 square foot?
Correct.
And what was the developer motivation to make a more lots to have a affordable housing a little bit than the 10,000, or they have a different motive?
Well, I can't speak for the applicant, but I do believe that, a big part of that has to do with the yield of what they can get from the development to make the project pencil, to make it worthwhile for them. But from a, planning end, a 10,000 square foot lot would certainly work there. But the R1C, the 6,500 square foot lot, certainly is consistent with the other developments in the area. And that if you look at the map, the lots do range from 65,000 or 6,500 square feet to over 11,000 square feet. Now, granted, the majority of the lots, especially in the middle, are 6,500 square feet, but it does have ample larger lots around the perimeter and especially along the trail areas. So I think it does kind of lend itself for, a nice development. But I don't know if, Aiden, if you're on the line, if you wanted to respond to, the need to go to the 6,500 square foot lot?
Yes, I'd be more than happy to, Chris. would you like me to wait until I kind of do my overall comments, or just dive on in and answer that question specifically?
Go ahead, dive right in.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The question really is consistent with how we view the property to the north. We're the developers on the Cardoso 1 property, and it's really the 6,500 square foot lot really represents a sweet spot in the market for what we believe is appropriate for Galt and to provide, providing housing in that area. And we're consistent with what's going on around us, and we think it really is responsive to the market. And so that was the nature of how we came up with the 6,500 square foot lot. And then Chris identified very nicely that because of the unique nature of our site plan in doing the landscape trail over the storm drain pipe that runs through the site at a diagonal, it created some really good opportunities from some larger lots viewing out to the south. So although not necessarily what I would call the most efficient layout, it created a really neat opportunity within the site plan to get some larger lots and to view out over the open space. But we believe the 6,500 square foot lot is really the appropriate size for this location in Galt and responding to the market.
Thank you. Thank you for the explanation. Chris, my next question is, the public review period from February 3rd to March 14th, something like that, right?
Cindy, does that sound right?
February 3rd to March 3rd, I believe.
Right. And did you guys see anybody approach to your office? Anybody comment on that against this project? You guys don't see because maybe I just need to find out, the public review how going to affect on other project, on this project, the public how they respond. They might be don't want to come down, or there is not that much effect on that.
No, Mr. Mayor, that's a good question, because we actually got no interest in this project from any members of the public. Since we started this project, we've only had one email questioning the project from the public, and they actually mixed up the Cardoso 2 project with the Cardoso 1. So technically, this project had no comments from the general public. At the Planning Commission meeting, there was nobody in attendance questioning the project. And the only reason that we brought this to council in a Zoom format is because it really was non-controversial. We wouldn't bring a project that we felt, the public had issues with to a meeting like this. We would wait until we can actually get people in the seats to bring those to council. So this project has really generated no interest from the general public.
Chris, I really thank you for your comment. That's exactly, we all are looking for any controversial, and we like to give the public opportunity. Right. I know they might have no public comments tonight either. So that's why my question. Any other council member have any question? If he's not, then I'm going to open the public hearing. Okay, I'm going to open the public hearing. Tina, anybody from the public, any comments?
Chris and Mr. Mayor, would be okay to make just a quick remark?
Yes, good.
Excellent. Again, my name is Aidan Barry, and I'm with the True Life Companies, and we really appreciate the opportunity to move this project forward. We are, without a doubt, in very unusual and uncertain times. I strongly believe on behalf of the True Life Companies that moving housing projects forward will be a huge part about how we come out of this on the back end. So having the support from Galt, all the way from city staff to the Planning Commission, and now hopefully tonight with the council, we believe housing is going to be a huge component of how we come out of this on the back end with COVID-19. And the impacts that it has had on our economy. So I applaud the city of Galt tremendously. And I appreciate the mayor's comments in that there has not been any opposition organized or not associated with this project, partly because obviously we don't have very many neighbors. We were involved with the development to the north along Coast, and then we have open space basically on all three sides and the rail on the other. But we believe that it's how your staff conducts business. We've got a good site plan. We've had a good review through your outside consultant and a good hearing at the Planning Commission. So we're comfortable that the process has been followed. And I just wanted to make note of my appreciation for your staff and your Planning Commission, and we look forward to your support tonight. I'm available to answer any specific questions. As to Mr. Campion's comment and question on additional language, your review of the offer of dedication and the intent behind that was dead on. So we would support whatever cleanup language we need to work on with staff to be able to garner your support. But that was the intent, that it was that operation would cease once the existing farmer and owner are no longer doing that, and the offer of dedication would clean that up and make that permanent open space.
Thank you.
Well, we look forward to your support, and thank you again for all of your work.
Thank you. Thank you.
What's the expected timeline on this project?
Great question. As the developer of the first project up on the other side of cost, we noticed that there was a lag between the tentative map approval and the actual implementation of the improvement plans and the final map. So we're going to do this one a little bit differently. We have already released our engineer of record to produce the improvement plans. So we're in a drafting stage of that now, and we hope to have that submitted within the next 30 days to staff. So our intent is to move straight from the tentative map approval, hopefully tonight, into the submittal of the improvement plans and the final map for your review and consideration. So we hope to develop this property in 2021.
So houses start to go vertical in 2021, or hopefully finished in 2021?
We would start to go vertical at this point. Again, the True Life Companies is a developer, and in this case, we see this the approval tonight of the tentative map getting us started into the improvement plan so that we can be shovel ready later this year, and subject to obviously timing of that, do the horizontal development either later this year or spring of next year.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Tina, you're out there.
Yes.
Any comment, public comment came on the email?
No public comments.
So I'm going to close the public hearing. Council, any discussion? Tina, please, can you read that recommended action on this agenda item?
So we need a motion, 3 separate motions. So the first one is to adopt a resolution adopting the initial study, mitigated negative declaration, and the mitigation monitoring and reporting program for the Cardozo 2 subdivision project.
All right, do we have a motion out there?
So moved, and also approving the conditionally approving the tentative map.
That's
So motion by Council Member Lampson and second by Council Member Campion, right?
Yeah. Did the original motion include conditionally approving the tentative map? I didn't hear that.
Okay.
that's a separate motion.
Second one,
There is 3 separate motion. I believe that's what they want, right?
correct.
Okay. Withdrawn.
So,
The last motion.
Tina, we have a roll call, please. On the first motion.
Vice Mayor Lozano,
Aye.
Councilmember Farmer,
Aye.
Councilmember Campion,
Aye.
Councilmember Lampson,
Aye.
Mayor Sandu.
Aye. Motion passed by 5-0. So Tina, may have a next recommended action.
So the next action is introduce an ordinance amending the district zoning map of the city of Galt for the Cardozo 2 subdivision to rezone those 59.17 acres of land identified as assessor's parcel number 150-0101-076 and 077 from low density single family residential district R1C and open space, waive full reading, and continue to the next regular meeting for adoption.
Do you have a motion, please?
So moved.
Motion by Council Member Campion,
Second.
second by Vice Mayor Lozano. May I have a roll call vote, please?
Vice Mayor Lozano,
Aye.
Councilmember Farmer,
Aye.
Councilmember Campion,
Aye.
Councilmember Lamson,
Aye.
Mayor Sandu.
Aye. Motion carried by 5-0. Tina, could you read the next action item?
Adopt resolution conditionally approving the tentative subdivision map for the Cardozo 2 subdivision project.
Do we have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Motion
Excuse
by
me.
Council.
With the modified condition of A19?
Yes, we want to be. Council Member Lamson, your motion by the modified, right?
To include the modification. Good catch, Cindy.
To include the modification, thank you.
All right, motion by Council Member Lamson and second by Vice Mayor Lozano.
Yes.
Tina, may I have a roll call vote, please?
Vice Mayor Lozano,
Aye.
Councilmember Farmer,
Aye.
Councilmember Campion,
Aye.
Councilmember Lamson,
Aye.
Mayor Sandu.
Aye. Motion carried by 5-0. Thank you. Next agenda item H, regular calendar. City Manager's Office. COVID-19 update. City Manager, Mr. Hagland.
Mayor Sandu, members of the council, good evening. This is an informational item and meant to bring both the council and the community up to date relative to our COVID-19 activities as a city. The city's Emergency Operations Center remains activated at level 2 for the COVID-19 event. The city is actively monitoring Sacramento County activities related to local response to COVID-19. As of today, April 21st, 2020, Sacramento County reports 954 COVID-19 infections, 35 deaths as a result of COVID-19. Sacramento County also reports 8 cases of COVID-19 in Galt. The county immediately across our city limit line to the south, San Joaquin County, reports as of 5 p.m. today, 456 COVID-19 infections and 20 deaths. The state of California is still subject, the entirety of the state of California is still subject to a statewide stay-at-home order issued by the governor. And that is the overarching stay-at-home order that is in addition to the Sacramento County Health Officer's stay-at-home order. The governor's order does not have an end date, although today he indicated that he will be providing more details and information related to the timing of gradually amending the statewide stay-at-home order to allow for more economic activity. The governor will provide that information or begin providing it tomorrow. The city continues to operate a greatly modified Galt market for the provision of produce, essential household items, and personal hygiene items, which are permitted under the county and state health orders. Approximately 30 vendors have participated thus far. That's in comparison to a typical complement of vendors around 300. The market provides a wide open air environment. Vendors are spaced 30 feet apart. Walking aisles are 50 feet wide. Distancing of vendors helps to ensure that customers maintain social distancing. Announcements to maintain social distancing are consistently made throughout the day. Vendors set up in a manner that allows for four-sided access to their the tables and the space that they're in. as another measure of providing our customers with the ability to practice social distancing. The market is operational for community access to food and essential household items only. The market's open air setup is designed to increase, not diminish, social distancing. Unfortunately, the current health orders prohibit the market from operating as it has done so historically. This is causing very significant economic harm to the city. Market operations under these conditions are losing more than $50,000 per week. Current estimates by staff indicate a loss of nearly $900,000 in market revenues by June 30th. That, of course, assumes that the governor's order for mass gatherings will continue to be prohibited through June 30th. Conservative estimates for fiscal year 21, which begins on July 1st, indicate a similar loss of revenue for the market. And that is based on what we anticipate to be a declining vendor base, as well as we are forecasting that it's very likely that July will continue to prohibit gatherings for the market as it has historically operated, as well as the first 2 weeks in August. In other areas, I want to assure the members of the council and the public that the city's essential services are fully operational with no interruptions. These essential services include police, water, wastewater, and the support services from the remainder of the city necessary to carry out these activities. And so I'd be happy with that to answer any questions that the council might have.
I just had a quick question, Tom. I know you had mentioned the projected losses from the market in some of your updates to the council. I think you actually included those in the city manager report. I had a couple emails from some citizens, and so I wanted to clarify the 50,000 projected loss. That's a gross number, correct?
That's a gross number.
Do we have any, and I know this is not something that you have told us, but have we tried to, or do we know what our projected decline in expenditures is because of the COVID-19 through, I know we have, certain programs not running, like sports programs and things like that. So do we know what our expenditures have gone down to offset those losses, or we don't know that?
Claire, I don't recall that we have that immediately. I know that Armando Solis, our Parks and Recreation Director, is working on that. He's been putting together quite a bit of detailed information, some of which I just shared with you. And then he's putting together, as you can imagine, we're in the middle of establishing a proposed budget to come to the council later this spring. And he's been doing quite a bit of work trying to help us revise that. But I don't recall that we have identified a specific number for the reduction in recreation programming. One of the things that I would highlight for the council is that the amount of money that we have allocated for maintenance, that is on the park side, physical facility maintenance, continues to be spent in accordance with what we set forth. So the area that we're really talking about would be recreational programming. Some of our programming that we would otherwise offer is, operated at a loss. And I would have to identify with the Parks and Rec Director exactly what that is. Now, he's on the line here. And so, Armando, if I've missed something or I'm not remembering something you provided me, please feel free to chime in.
No, I think you covered it all. We're actually looking currently at the expenditure savings. As Tom said, that there's we're running these programs where it's costing us money. We're looking at the overall cost savings right now at this time, along with the new revenue projections for the market.
Armando, I was actually curious specifically on is it costing us? I don't know personally know of any staff that's been let go or laid off because of the COVID that I'm aware of. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but is it costing us more because we're running the market on a smaller scale? Tom mentioned 30 vendors versus 300, but is our staff or our expenditures to run the market the way we're running it now? Is it still about the same, or are we spending less to run it, or are we spending more because of all the safety precautions that we're taking? How does that fall right now?
It is costing us far less than what we'd run on a regular market day. Unfortunately, we have had to lay off some of our employees on our rec side related to our SOAR programs, our city tots, our softball program. So we did have to lay some of those people off.
Okay. So although there's no doubt the financial impact of this that we're going through is going to be serious, and we don't even really know till it's all over and we can see where we're at. But I just want to be clear though, that even though we are seeing a $50,000 per week decline in revenue, that there is some decline in expenditures for running the market too. We just don't know where the numbers are going to fall at this time. Right?
Yeah, there is a lot of reduction in expenditures in that.
Okay.
So every dollar we can save by not spending it, we're doing that. The thing that I would want to point out, just so that there's no misunderstanding, is that it's not a dollar for dollar savings. The $50,000 a week loss in revenue is catastrophic. It will be catastrophic to the overall Parks and Recreation budget. There is no way that I see to save our way out of that by not making expenditures. We can cut into it for sure, but we will not. There will not be. There is no way for there to be a dollar for dollar savings.
And one last question. This is a little bit off topic of what I just asked you, but it made me think of it because you said you're going to be bringing a budget to us in spring. Where are we at? And I apologize. I think I asked this not long ago, and I got a response. But I know we had the ransomware issue in December, and then this COVID thing kind of started in February. But where are we kind of at with the CAFR at this point? I mean, we're if this thing drags out any longer, we're almost going to be a year past our the end of our fiscal year. We still don't have that yet.
That's absolutely right, but I will also let the finance director specifically address that. But I will underscore the fact that both ransomware, which took down our systems for a couple months prior to getting everything, and not everything is back up and running, by the way, but getting to a point where we could access on a more substantial way, or financial management systems and things like that, really took a lot of time, and of course stood in the way of being able to get our audit done, get it fully completed, I should say. A lot of it was it had been prepared. Our auditors had done quite a bit of work. But the ransomware hit at a time in which it fundamentally altered the course and direction of what we were working on. And so with that, Claire, I'm not sure if you have any additional comments you'd like to provide.
Yes, that's exactly correct. We are working on that financial report. We're finalizing the audit. The auditors are engaged with the staff. We're meeting with them weekly. We are trying to provide a budget to council and the CAFR, and I don't know exactly which one's going to come first, but they're going to come pretty close together, I believe. So our goal is that we will not be doing 2 fiscal year ends at the same time. So your concern is also our concern. We do not plan on doing that. We're very close to finalizing that report.
Yeah, and I look, I get it. You know, we all have a full plate. You know, staff has just been, it's like, you know, one thing after another. You know, first the ransomware, now we have this. It's just been, you know, just the 1-2 punch. But I just, you know, I know that typically in the past, and I mean, and maybe Kurt and Paige can comment, but I think if I recall, typically, you know, the CAFR's presented late in the year, maybe sometime right before December or in December for approval. And I know the ransomware hit around the 17th. So in my mind, I was thinking that we kind of were, you know, having that wrapped up at that point. So there shouldn't have been a lot left to do, but apparently that was probably not the case. And we were a little bit behind that on that point. And so now all this stuff is just made it prolonged out even further. So.
Yeah, there might be something else I'd point out about the usual and customary timeline. I'm used to providing in the old days or the older days than today, providing a audit to council in the November, very early December timeframe. That doesn't happen anymore, and it doesn't happen for good reason. The Government Accounting Standards Board has promulgated many additional rules and requirements on reporting, some of which you simply can't do until literally the end. You know, you're getting up towards the end of even your calendar year. By the time a lot of that they have time to be able to get that. Expecting a CAFR or your audited financials in late January, I think, is typically kind of reasonable if everything is going well and you have the complement of people it takes to produce all of the additional reporting that has been layered on to government just even in the last 5 to 10 years. And so it's not uncommon for cities now to be providing their CAFR in the February timeframe. And we see that more and more around the state. Getting it done by the November, December was something that even I had to finally get used to the fact that it wasn't going to happen, because that was his, you know, for more of my career than less has been my expectation. But there's just too much that's changed in the last 5 to 10 years.
All right. Thank you for that explanation.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Claire.
Any other council member, any other question?
Yeah, I have just a couple of comments. Mr. Hagelin, I appreciate the updates, the daily updates, as well as the update that you provide in our meetings. I too am, I think, more concerned now than ever about the financial impacts of this national emergency. And so I think that it's going to be incumbent upon us to really address some of this in our budget meetings that are coming up, because, you know, as we've been hearing for a good year, you know, our reserves have been just dwindling away. This certainly hasn't made it any easier, and I appreciate the work that you know, staff has done in the last year to kind of prep us for making some hard decisions along the way, and now certainly additional hard decisions. So I am real concerned about the sales tax revenue that we're going to be losing. I think that, and again, just opinion of one, but I believe that our you know, commercial construction is probably going to slow to almost nothing. And, you know, and so we just, on many fronts of that the city is responsible for, we're going to see some impacts. And so, you know, having an open mind and the ability to keep everything on the table that we can, to ease the impact to our community. And as we provide the services to our community moving forward, it's going to be real important to do that. So thanks again for the update. It's it's horrible news, and I wish you had better news for us, but moving forward, I think we need to at least certainly keep in mind what we're facing in terms of the finances.
Yeah, and unfortunately, my comments tonight and the COVID-related matter focused more on the Galt market. You remind me that we will have a very significant impact to our sales tax. And we're working with HDL, who provides us with very fine-tuned evaluation of every sales tax dollar that comes into every business within our community. And I participated earlier this week, as did other staff, in a conference call, much like this meeting, with the League of California Cities and with one of the leading experts for the last 35 years in California public sector finance. And it is going to be, sales tax alone is going to be one of the single largest reductions. So we can think just that half of March, April, May, and June are likely to be dramatically affected by sales tax. And that represents hundreds of thousands of dollars to the city. And we also anticipate that next fiscal year will have a sales tax impact as well. It will be less as a percentage because it'll be spread over the year. But we're working very hard to follow the best advice and the best practice in establishing what our new sales tax projections will be. But between sales tax, which not only affects the general fund, but remember, it also will significantly impact Fund 47, which is our Measure R monies. And Measure R is all sales tax. And so we will have to make, I think, in order to have a balanced budget, demonstrate to the community that we'll live within our means, we're going to be making some very serious and impactful decisions as we go forward. Our job as a staff is to cull through all of that, to make our best recommendations as to where we can reduce expenses in every category, in every way, both in the general fund and in Measure R, and bring to you a balanced budget that you can consider. And then clearly we have a conversation not only between staff and the council, but clearly involving the community as well. But I would not want the expectation to be that we move forward out of this national emergency with any belief, any shred of belief that there will not be very serious consequences to the city's general fund and Measure R budgets.
Hey,
and
Tom,
market budget.
Hey, Tom, do we have any early numbers that show us the decline in sales tax thus far since we've entered this shelter order? Or are we just projecting or speculating? I'm just curious of what the if we have anything tangible to show us that we can use.
Yeah, we're not just speculating. It's not just sheer speculation. So when I say that we participated in a statewide webinar with the League of California Cities and Michael Coleman, who's one of the leading individuals in local government finance in California. He was all over Prop 1 when that provided constitutional guarantees to certain of the state monies. He's been involved in all manner of efforts to protect local government funding, and as well as dissect local government funding across all of its categories. And anybody could open our budget, go to one of the very first schedules and see what we call the sources and uses schedule or something like that. It talks about every dollar. If there's a dollar that comes into this city, it's in that schedule. And you can see it for budgetary purposes. So we listened to him, and we have listened to our sales tax consultant who serves hundreds of cities across the state in providing sales tax review and analysis. And they provide that review and analysis on a dollar for dollar basis across every business that exists in this state and is inside of a city or a county. And so they have an excellent handle on that. And so we are we'll be working with them more closely over the course of this past week and next week to come up with a refined estimate of what we believe the losses to be. But based on their early indications, I anticipate that the losses this fiscal year in just sales tax, I'm not talking Measure R, because we hadn't gotten that far yet. But just in sales tax, I would imagine that it will eclipse the $500,000 mark. I'm hoping that it stays below $750,000. And then that will have an even further reduction next year in terms of what we anticipate to be happening based on the public finance experts that I've previously mentioned going into next year. As a percentage of loss, it would be lower, but it would be spread out throughout the fiscal, the entire 12 months of the fiscal year. So I'm hoping, Sean, that somehow, some way, we are between the 2 years staying below between market and sales tax and Measure R. I'd sure like to keep it, I'm desirous of, the ultimate analysis showing that it's somewhere below $1.5 to $1.75 million of reduction.
Yeah, I don't want to prolong the conversation. I was just curious if we had actual numbers to see, just to see the actual what we've lost so far. Because I know certain sectors like TOT, for example, I know is a big one. And I know restaurants in town, but I mean, is looking at it from a local level, not, talking to other cities and what they're going through. But the fact that typically a lot of our citizens are spending money outside the community regularly, and we know the sales tax leakage that we have. We've talked about it many times. But I think what's interesting is the conversation I've had with people, and they're saying, well, how has that affected the leakage? Because people are sheltering in place. I've seen a lot more people spending locally. I know Walmart, I'd be curious if Walmart, which is one of our biggest sales tax, if not the biggest sales tax contributor, I know that they're really busy. I'm curious how less busy they are. I know that they're doing a lot more, grocery pickup type stuff. So they're just doing different type of business. But I'm curious how much business is down overall for people like that in grocery stores. So I'm just curious about what the real effect will be at the local level in Galt after it's all said and done.
Yeah, those are the nuanced issues that we want to dive into, and that our early estimations don't dive into as cleanly. And so we want to be able to dive into that detail. Part of the problem we face, just like every city and every county in the state, is that this quarter's reporting, when we finish this quarter that we're in, the second quarter of the calendar year, we aren't going to have a report on that until late August or early September because of just the time lag in the state collecting it and reporting it. But HDL has a finger on the pulse of not only our businesses, but businesses throughout the state. They certainly know the big players like Walmart and many of the other big boxes, Costco, whatever communities have. They'll be able to draw on that level of experience, knowledge, and discussion with those entities to come up with reasonable projections. It may not be known down to the penny, But what we aren't going to do here as a staff is clearly put on rose-colored glasses, but we also don't want them to be opaque either. You know, we need to try to look out and see what's reasonable. One of the things we're tracking is consumer confidence. And so, yes, even I will drive out to Rayleigh's or, Walmart or other stores or have stuff delivered here that we can, that we need for our family. And I do see people utilizing that type of shopping. Remember, groceries are not taxed. And so really what we rely on is consumer confidence being strong enough to be purchasing those other items that are taxed, the non-food related items. And so we do see a significant shift statewide and nationally in consumer confidence. And so how that manifests itself, it's too early for us to know, but that's what we're working with our experts on.
Tom, let me chime in for a second. I had talked to Claire about this before when I learned that the online ordering was going to start giving us a piece. And I know a lot of businesses and retail, Sean, are a lot busier, but I see a lot more people ordering online. And Claire, you're going to have to clarify my numbers, but if we get 1% off of the sales tax that's spent locally, the state decided that off of the online orders, we're only getting 0.1%. So the more people that switch to Amazon, that's 10 times less tax, correct, Claire?
We do get less tax over that. We do get a portion of that though, and there are some distributions where we are learning what kind of dollars those mean to us, but they are less, yes.
Yeah, it goes into a county pool. All that online stuff is in a county pool and it gets dispersed differently. That's been a beef we've had with the state ever since the internet started selling things.
Thank you. Thank you. Anybody, any other council member have any other question? Mr. Hagland, thank you for updating us every day. I have a very quick question. I believe I asked you the same thing. Is any program, as a city, we getting any program from the state or federal government? And any program or any grant we getting from the state or the federal government?
Not yet. So the stimulus money that you've seen talking about going to communities was going to communities of over 500,000, and they had a way of breaking it up, between with counties and cities, but you had to be of a certain size, and we didn't meet any of that criteria.
So that's what I heard on a conference call. If the population is more than 500,000, I believe they're getting, because we have a conference call with all the mayor week before they was talking about. I really don't understand. That's why I'm asking you. Did you clarification on that?
Well, and so as I was indicating, that is going to the cities and counties that are larger like that. We haven't seen anything here, but there is a bill that the latest information I had earlier today, there is a bill in the Congress, but it fell apart. I don't know if they've been able to put Humpty Dumpty back together, but it was originally being aimed at small communities. And so we're hopeful that something will come out, and we're advocating for that. The League of California Cities, of which we are a member as a city, is advocating at the federal level for that kind of relief package. But we need it to be different than the money that's going to communities of 500,000 or more, because a lot of that money is geared towards very specific areas of how you might respond as a community to effects within your community of COVID-19. It is not replacement revenue, as far as I understand. And so that is to say that if we want to personalize it, And if we do indeed lose just this year alone $879,000 from market operations, ideally we would want an aid package that would replace that for us, right? And we would want something that would replace lost revenues for us going into next fiscal year. And so that was at least what I was hearing was that was part of the focus of this aid package to smaller communities. But we'll have to see. We'll have to see, one, if they can put it back together, and then what it ultimately looks at. But it's one thing to to have grant money available. It's another thing to have it usable. To be able to use it in a reasonable way.
Thank you, Tom. All right, next agenda item is H2, letter of support for solid waste industry effort to obtain COVID-19 related legislative relief. City Manager, Mr. Hackland.
Thank you. So this item comes to us. It was sent to us by Cal Waste, our waste hauler, but they are part of a larger statewide organization, the Resource Recycling Coalition of California. And the coalition has put together a requested package for relief for waste haulers throughout the entirety of the state. One of the things that is happening is that with the closure of businesses, businesses are canceling or stopping for the time being their commercial waste hauling services. And so that is impacting waste haulers around the state. In your packet of information for tonight's agenda, I included it's a 2 or 3 page briefing from the Resource Recovery Coalition of California. And it highlights essentially the type of legislation that they're going to be approaching the state with, and they're seeking local support for that. And for many waste haulers, one of the issues is whether or not they'll be able to ultimately stay in business. I haven't heard that from Cal Waste, but there are a number of other waste haulers, even in this region, that are proponents of this legislation as well. Waste Management, Recology, Republic, all who provide waste hauling services within the region. And so the other thing I would point out is that this affects both public, that is cities that operate their own waste hauling services, counties that may operate their own waste hauling services, as well as private waste haulers. This would be legislation that would serve all waste haulers throughout the state. And so they've asked for a letter of support. As you can imagine, waste hauling is an essential service. We need it picked up at our homes. We need it picked up at our businesses. We need it picked up at our industrial sites in order to maintain public health and safety. And so this item comes before you to consider the letters of support that are also identified in your packet. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Lozano.
No questions.
I have a question, not so much about the letter. As you know, Tom, when we discussed this, you and I thought it was, waste is, our waste hauler is an important service to our community right now, especially right now. And I have foreseen the increase in residential. I was reading an article, which I think I shared with you, Tom, about a 30% increase in residential waste being created because of the people sheltering at home and creating more waste at home. So it just proves of how important this service is. And we need to make sure that that it doesn't, it remains intact. I do have a concern, which I did speak with you about. I know that recently, and I hate to bring it up again, but recently we were notified that Cal Waste was going to discontinue the bulky waste pickup that residents are entitled to once a year. There's the handy hauler, and there's a bulky waste pickup, and then they were discontinuing the bulky waste, and they notified us that it was a safety concern of their employees to get out and take care of the bulky waste. But I just can't stress how important it is to have these items picked up. I've seen, I don't know if you can speak with the county, but I've seen a significant amount of garbage being dumped out in the country on the outskirts of the city limits. And I know that that's been a problem from time to time, but I've seen it a lot more. I have family who live out in the country and they're complaining about it a lot more. People are at home, they're creating more garbage, and these bulky waste pickups are very much needed. I would like to reach out to Cal Waste and see if it is a safety concern with the bulky waste. Maybe they can make some other concession with us on some other type of service, like with the handy hauler, if that's a service that's not, doesn't put their workers in an unsafe situation, then maybe they can work out something where we can have something like that instead of in place of the bulky waste. But I understand that they're probably being hit by this COVID thing, but I also understand that we have an agreement with them to provide a service to us. And right now we need them. And this is like, this is that moment where their service is more important than ever to us. And I would just like that conversation to take place, if you could, Tom, with them about that.
I did reach out to Cal Waste this week, and in part to inquire as to whether or not they were intending to bring back bulky waste on May 3rd. As you know, they haven't completely abandoned or indicated that they're trying to abandon the program. That would be problematic under the franchise agreement. But they have indicated that as a result of COVID-19 and consistent with what they're seeing across the industry, the waste hauler industry, that they are putting off or stopping for a period of time. Cal Waste indicated till at least May 3rd, the pickup of bulky waste because of contamination concerns relative to that bulky waste, and the fact that it does require personal handling by the employees. And so some of what we did was we took a look at other waste haulers. We understand that other waste haulers in the industry, for instance, Waste Management in Auburn and Emeryville, Cal Waste, both in Galt, Rancho Murrieta, Recology in Davis, Republic in Elk Grove, and other cities have also, in conformance with this industry-wide standard, to take some effort to protect employees from COVID-19, have stopped that bulky waste service for a period of time. However, those individual entities are defining that period of time. Cal Waste indicated to me this week they're keeping a list of the people who are calling in and requesting that bulky waste service. They are desirous of starting that service back on May 3rd, but they will make that determination based on where things stand with COVID-19 in late April, early May. And so it is possible that they could extend the period of time that they're doing that. And so then when that sort of thing happens, we look to our franchise agreement, and we look to how we might deal with that, and is what the waste hauler doing or proposing to do reasonable. And one of the provisions of our waste hauling agreement is an uncontrolled circumstance agreement, or an uncontrolled circumstance provision within the agreement. And COVID-19 as a unforeseen circumstance in this way fits squarely within that, provides the waste hauler, in this case, Cal Waste, some ability to do what they're doing in overall protection of their employees and thereby by extension, I suppose, the community itself. So if they plan to or indicate to me that they want to take that beyond May 3rd, I will have a conversation with them specifically about whether or not something can happen with the handy hauler service, or just what a plan of action would be to get back to the bulky service. A lot of what they pick up on bulky is couches and rolls of carpeting and refrigerators and stoves and all manner of things that may not always fit within the handy hauler itself, or would otherwise, even if it went in the handy hauler, would still require personal intervention in getting that offloaded. So even as an employer, and even though they have a franchise agreement, we want them to live up to every provision of the franchise agreement. They too have guidelines that come down to them, just like we do, whether it's OSHA at the state level or at the federal level, or is going to look to them to provide reasonable means of safety to their employees. And so everything they do or propose relative to an alteration of operations under COVID-19, we will view from the lens of reasonableness. Is what they're proposing reasonable? Is the time frame reasonable? And do they have a plan for how they're going to accommodate all of that customer traffic when they begin, in this case, the bulky service again?
Yeah, and I understand all that. So, like I said, I just want to make sure that if it is really about a safety thing and not about a manpower issue, because that's been thrown around. I'm not unsympathetic to wanting to protect their employees. I get that, but that's why I also suggest maybe exchanging that service for another service. Those items that you mentioned about the bulky waste, those are the types of items that I'm referring to that are being dumped. Refrigerators are being dumped out in the country, and couches and those types of things. And it's sad that we now have to see that happening because of a service, because landfills aren't even open right now. I think one just reopened, but most of them are closed. So people have nowhere to take these things. And so it's the perfect storm. And I just want to make sure that we keep the dialogue going with them. May 3rd, if they decide to extend that, then we need to, ask them if they're willing to compromise something. What else can they do for us? I mean, I think they're asking us for something here, and we're willing to give that to them and support them in this reach out to, to the Capitol on behalf of all the waste haulers. But I also feel like, in exchange, that we want to make sure that we are getting our services critical in a time. So thank you, Tom, for that. And I'll be following up with you after May 3rd.
Sure.
Thank you. Any other council member want any comment?
No, thank you.
Tom, go ahead, Pete.
I just said no, thank you. I think we directed staff to do this at the last council meeting. So thank you guys for doing that, getting that together, Tom.
Mm-hmm.
Tom, the only thing I would like to clear with that, this poll letter, it does not have any impact on a city budget at all, right?
No, it doesn't. This is would be think of it as a state stimulus package geared towards the solid waste industry.
Thank you for the clarification. Do we have a motion on that?
So moved.
All right, motion by Councilmember Lampson.
Second.
Second by Councilmember Farmer. Tina, may I have a call vote, please?
Vice Mayor Lozano,
Aye.
Councilmember Farmer,
Aye.
Councilmember Campion,
Aye.
Councilmember Lamson,
Aye.
Mayor Sandu.
Aye. Motion carried by 5-0. Thank you, everyone. Next agenda item is H3, a discussion on use and formation of community facility district for the provision of services and maintenance association with development.
Mr. Mayor, members of the, I'm sorry. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, that delay kills us, doesn't it? As you might recall from your last meeting, we processed a updated agreement for services with Wildan Financial Services so that they could assist us in developing a community facilities district that would apply throughout the entirety of the city and be related to new development. And you approved that agreement, and that process continues to move forward. But one of the things I talked about was bringing back to the council a discussion about community facilities districts generally, what they fund, how they're constructed. And tonight we have a series of experts that we work with to put together a community facilities district, including legal counsel, our fiscal advisor, and then Wildan, which provides some of the detailed financial analysis on that, as well as staff. Chris Arias, our community development director, our finance director, Mike Selling, our public works director, all involved in how these community facilities districts get set up. But what I'd like to do is I'll bring up in just a second a PowerPoint that we're going to move through for the council. And I'd like to introduce Kim Byrons, who is an attorney with Best and Krieger, BBK, our city attorney firm. And she is going to walk through this PowerPoint with you, give you a complete understanding of how CFDs are constructed and what they are used to finance. And then we'll all be available, including Kim Byrons, to answer any questions of the council. And so let me bring that up right now. And Kim, if you could just tell me when you want me to advance to the next slide, I'll get that underway.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Again, Mayor Santu and members of the City Council and Mr. Hagland, I'm Kim Byrons. I'm a partner in the Public Finance Department of Best and Krieger. I've been with the firm for 30 years and have always been in the public finance department. So community facilities districts, I feel like I've grown up with them. And the presentation that we have given you is very much an outline form tonight. So the idea is to encourage you to ask any questions. Also here tonight, I think, is Craig Hill from NHA Advisors, the city's financial advisory firm. And is Mike Medvey also here from Wildan? Okay. I think Craig is also available to answer any questions as well. And so with that, I will just get started with the next.
There we go.
Thank you. So we've set this up as kind of a workshop, but really it is more of a discussion of CFDs generally, the type of improvements, why they're popular with development, and then we'll talk about actions that have happened to date, and then things to expect to be coming before the City Council late summer, and in any other questions. So the next slide, please. So what's a CFD? A CFD is a financing special district. It was created by the legislature in 1982 as a response to the need for a financing mechanism for development that was more flexible than an assessment district. So the legislature created these, and they have been very, very popular throughout the state for development. And other states have developed their own form of these as well in order to fund public capital facilities and services, and then levy a special tax on the properties within that special district for the purpose of paying debt service, which would finance the public facilities, or as a mechanism to pay for services, police and fire services, or maintenance for landscape maintenance, storm drain maintenance, pump stations, etc. The benefit of these financing districts, CFDs, is that there's no benefit finding, that it's levied to a rate and method of apportionment of a special tax. We determine the tax up front on the front end of the development, and that's it. So it can be very, very flexible. Next slide. The CFDs finance improvements that are generally owned by local agencies, but it can be the sponsoring local agency. So for example, if the city is the sponsoring local agency, it can fund facilities that will be owned by the city, but it can also fund facilities that will be owned by another local agency under a joint community facilities agreement. So for example, development can come into the city, and through a CFD, it could fund city streets, traffic improvements, sidewalks, water, sewer improvements. It can fund administrative facilities for the city. But additionally, it can also fund school facilities that would be owned by the school district, or flood control facilities owned by the flood control district, or county roads maybe located outside the city but impacted by the development. Things that are sort of out there, and we beyond just the four corners of the community facilities district. And the efficiency in that is that you have this one tax and one action taken to form the CFD, so you don't have to have multiple taxes and multiple financing districts in order to fund a variety of improvements. The CFD can also fund a variety of services to be provided by the local agency. Again, I mentioned that earlier: police, fire, and then maintenance, landscaping, lighting, and streetscape maintenance. The CFD, again, is funded through the special tax, and as opposed to an assessment district, the special tax has a higher threshold of approval, which is a 2/3 vote of landowners within the district or registered voters within the district. And again, there's no need for a benefit finding, which is why there is that higher threshold of approval for a special tax. So I've noted here that where there are fewer than 12 registered voters within a district, the vote is by the landowner. So usually these special districts are formed early in development, usually around the time that the tract map is being filed. And so there are no registered voters, and the landowners vote. They get one vote per acre or a fraction of an acre. If in the event there are registered voters located within a community facilities district, Then we have a real election with the registered voters and real ballots that are, distributed out of voting, the way you would normally conduct an election. Although the facilities that are financed by a CFD can be anywhere within the city or outside of the city limits, the property that is subject to the special tax is going to have to be located within the corporate boundaries of the city, and the complete boundaries of the CFD must be located within the corporate boundaries of the local agency that's sponsoring it. Okay, next slide. Again, these are just a short list of the types of facilities that a CFD may finance. I will note that at the end of this list, it's any facility that can be owned by a local agency and has a useful life of 5 years or longer. That's extremely broad power. And that's why these are utilized so frequently. A couple of other unusual aspects to CFDs is that if necessary, these financing mechanisms can be used to fund earthquake retrofit for both public and private structures. And it can also be used for hazardous waste cleanup. So I don't know if that's something that you'd ever be interested in, but it was noteworthy to just show you the very, very broad powers to finance city improvements. But for most cities and other local agencies, we really do kind of stick to this list: K through 12 improvements, parks, streets, flood control, water and sewer. The basic things that are needed for a city or a school district. Okay, next slide. The special taxes, what are they authorized to pay? We approve taxes at the same time we form the district. The electors approve the special taxes at the election, and at those times, at the time we form the district and at the time we conduct the election, we actually will tell everybody what these special taxes will be doing. Generally, they're going to pay debt service on the CFD bonds. They're going to pay all the administrative expenses. And just as a note, the administrative expenses are not just paying a bond trustee and paying the consultants who levy the taxes, who do the math to determine the taxes and then submit those taxes to the county for inclusion on the assessor's roll. The administrative expenses can also be allocated to city staff time that is needed to administer the CFD throughout the year. So it should be something that does not cause a drain on city resources. It should be able to pay for itself and city staff time. They pay for facilities on a pay-as-you-go basis. Special taxes can also be used to pay for other obligations, debt service, if it's thought of ahead of time. It can pay for public services as authorized, and maintenance on any facility that's owned by the local agency. We do streets, as you can imagine. And then, thank you. The next slide, please. So the city has a debt policy for special taxes, and your current debt policy is very broad. It's generally that the facilities are designed to pay for, or the special taxes should pay for debt service and administrative costs. It also allows for the special taxes to pay for pay-as-you-go facilities. The debt policy also does not allow a tax burden. And when we say a tax burden, I mean the total effective tax rate on of property subject to special tax, which would include the ad valorem levy and then those sort of tax overrides and the CFD tax, not to exceed 2% of the base sales price. The special taxes generally provide for a minimum 110 coverage of bonded debt service. That means there is the taxes that can be levied will exceed the taxes that must be levied by 10%. And we don't always levy at that 110, but we just want to show that we can. And then on a statutory basis, we cannot fund interest from bonds for more than 2 years. The next slide, please. Okay, so this is a very, very brief outline of what we do as council action, as sort of city council action to form a CFD. And the goal is to really have 2 actions in front of the council. The first would be to initiate proceedings, and the council would approve that. And then the second step would be between 30 and 60 days later, where we would formalize the final formation of the CFD and conduct the election. So initially, the developer submits to the city an application and deposit requesting the formation of the CFD. Then the city's financing team prepares a rate and method of apportionment of the special tax, a boundary map, and then they also prepare all the legislative proceedings that will be brought before you for approval. At that time, the city will adopt a resolution of intention and a resolution to incur bonded indebtedness, and those resolutions basically set out the parameters of the CFD, the life of the special tax, the bonded debt of the special tax, and the rate and method of apportionment of the special tax, and the boundaries of the district, and then call a hearing, which must be 30 to 60 days later. Between the resolution of intention and the hearing, the finance team will take several actions that are required under the Act and give notice of the public hearing. On that hearing date, the local agency or the city would conduct the hearing, and any people that want to be heard, we would allow to speak. At the end of the hearing, the council adopts a resolution of formation of the CFD, which formalizes those things that were in the resolution of intention to form the CFD. It also will call an election. So if all the stars and planets are aligned, there are no registered voters living within the CFD, and it's a landowner vote. And we would call the election to be on the same day that we form the CFD, and the landowners would consent to that. And the city also would consent to it. And we would just have the ballots there. The city clerk opens the ballots and declares the results of the election. And at that point in time, the CFD is formed, the election is successful, and we would then go forward to that next step, which would be approval of a bond issue. The bond issue usually would be at some later date because of development. there needs to be an underwriter and a determination of value. There are those circumstances where development has occurred in the CFD during the course of the formation of the CFD, where the value is sufficient to proceed with the formation or with the issuance of bonds at the same time that we've formed the district. But usually it is some time later than that. Once the bonds are issued, then the city will annually levy a special tax in order to pay that. And that's determined by the special tax consultant. You've just renewed your contract with Wildan, and they do a really nice job preparing a report every year that shows all the obligations, expenses of the district, and how the math is done to levy the special tax, and then submit that to the roll. Just as a note on the next slide, these are popular mechanisms for financing within Sacramento County. As of the end of last June, there were 107 CFDs in Sacramento County. So as you can imagine, throughout the state, they are very popular. Similarly, in Southern California, where there's been rapid development, and then all over the Bay Area as well, and the Central Valley, they are very, very popular. The next slide, please. So what is the appeal? A local agency can generally get something out of a CFD aside from just the development project gets built. Sometimes there is the opportunity to get additional funding for recreation or streets or administrative buildings or police and fire. Schools generally like to use these CFDs because they can negotiate funds that exceed the statutory school fees. If a local agency has a lot of projects in their capital improvement plan, be able to accelerate some of those facilities with the CFD. But I think one of the appeals for us here locally in Galt is that we can make development pay for its own public services, so that we can increase that contribution from new development for police, fire, and maintenance. The next slide, please. Excuse me. So why do developers love these? Development loves these. Their bond proceeds are an economic driver for development. The developer does not have to borrow as much from banks to fund the improvements, or if they funded the improvement from a bank loan, they can use the bond proceeds to pay that bank loan. So they can reduce their debt burden, basically. The homeowner correspondingly does not have to qualify for a larger loan because that portion of the total cost of the facility is on the tax bill rather than in the cost of the home. The development appeal also is that there is a planned community. Are we on the next slide? Thank you. The developers can give a real planned community feel. Actually, the FD does accelerate the pace of home sales, and it accelerates the profit margin to the developer because they're able to either pay for the facilities from the bond proceeds directly or repay their loan to fund the facilities earlier. And again, it's an overall feel of nice, I already said, but I think really what we mean is they have nicer amenities for the home buyers. Next slide, please. So the city has taken some action with respect to the citywide CFD and possibly Liberty Ranch. The city has put together a financing team to work with the development community to determine the cost of services and maintenance, and also to review its goals and policies for the future actions to be taken in light of the development or the work that it's already done with the development community. Next slide, please. So coming before you later this spring and in the summertime, we may present some revised goals and policies. We will also take action to initiate proceedings to form the citywide CFD toward the end of May, and to initiate the CFD for the Ranch project. And that may follow the citywide CFD. Later on in July, we would have a hearing to conduct the election for the citywide CFD, and then sometime subsequent to that, the Liberty Ranch CFD. And then prior to August, if we are able, we would special taxes county roll, but that will probably be at late fiscal year when development occurs, as generally we really only levy the special taxes on developed property and not on the undeveloped property. And with that, I'm available, and I think Craig is also available for any questions that you may have.
I have a real quick question, Ms. Byrons. I think I misunderstood your last comment. What was that again about levying current properties versus future?
Of course. Yes. So my last comment was, generally speaking, developers want to structure the special tax so they don't pay it. So the homeowners pay the special tax. So usually what happens is we prepare the roll when the development occurs. And there may be a time when developers pay a special tax. For example, if we've issued bonds slightly ahead of all of the properties being completely developed, the undeveloped property may pay some of the debt service, but generally speaking, the homeowners are going to pay for the services and the debt service. And so the undeveloped property tax is generally not levied unless we absolutely need to.
Okay, thank you. I like I said, I missed part of it and it was cutting out a little bit. No, that's okay. That's okay. I don't necessarily have any questions for you in the presentation, but thank you for putting it together and bringing it. I just have a question maybe for our interim city manager. How many CFDs in our city do we currently already have? and I'm more interested, not necessarily just in development. Well, how do I put this? My understanding is there may be already a CFD in place for fire protection in our area, and so my question is, how many do we have, and what are they for? If we know them all offhand.
So we have a CFD that funds. It's a police CFD, and I believe that one also funds some fire service. But let me ask Chris Arias to chime in here. Chris? Or maybe Kimberly, you can answer that.
So we have the 2005-1 CFD that I think Councilmember Lozano might be referring to for public safety. The fire protection, I think there's also one that CCSD may have. And so when those are specific, that you'll have properties annexed into those. That was one proposal for the Liberty Ranch that they were looking at, is whether they're going to annex into that or annex into a new CFD if that was created for services, but that's specific to services.
Tom, I was on mute, and my apologies. The 2005-1 CFD does cover police and fire services.
Yeah, okay.
It is handling both.
I did have a couple questions for you. On the capitalized interest to your maximum, is the capitalized interest included in the calculation for determining the maximum levy of 2% of the base sale of the or value of the homes?
Yeah, so the reason you have capitalized interest is basically timing to sort of alleviate the debt service from undeveloped property, number one, and then to give you time that the special tax on the tax roll. And there is going to be, it is part of the overall cost of the bond issue. So, for example, when we come to the council with initiating proceedings, we will ask that bonds not exceeding a certain dollar amount be eligible to be issued. So whatever that amount is, 5 million, 30 million, 150 million, it's whatever that special tax rate and method of apportionment formula is going to be able to support based on the plan of development. So the capitalized interest cost would be part of that overall bonded indebtedness number that could be supported by the special tax over the course of the life of the bond issue.
My experience, and it's limited, most of the time it appears that the capitalized interest is used to offset costs to the developer. Is that correct?
Well, again, it's for two reasons. One is the timing of getting development to pay for the special tax and having the special tax be placed onto the assessor's roll.
Okay. But you would need a full 2 years to get it placed on the assessor roll.
You need a year. Okay. And then the other one is to make sure that as this development occurs, that you're not levying the tax on undeveloped property. So you are sort of letting the developer defer that principal payment.
At the same time, though, couldn't you also look at a vacant land assessment as well as your normal assessment on developed property in order to, well, I guess for lack of a better term, have everybody have a little skin in the game, including the developer, with regard to paying a portion of the tax. I guess my point is that the more capitalized interest you have in there, the fewer actual public improvements you do. And really the future homeowners paying the financing of the district in its entirety, plus carry costs of the developer. So I guess it's just a philosophical issue of, and I guess a real issue as to, what are the costs associated with the development.
Mm-hmm. So it doesn't happen very often anymore. I will tell you that 20 some years ago, when we did CFDs, and an earlier stage of development, at a much earlier stage of development, we would see capitalized interest included in the bond issue much more. The special tax will usually have, as part of the formula, an undeveloped special tax, a category that will levy on properties that have pulled on them. So really the capitalized interest component comes into play depending on how early in the development the bonds are intended to be issued, and then also the credit quality and underwriting criteria that your financing team is going to impose on the development.
And Kim, if I can interject just for a second, this is Craig Hill with NHA Advisors.
Yes.
I think as a point of clarification, from a public policy perspective, we really do believe that you want to try to minimize capitalized interest as much as possible. It does negatively impact the project's ability to get built, because you're absolutely right. There's a finite amount of bonds, and if you're spending more of it just to pay interest, less of it is going towards projects. So generally, we're advising cities to postpone those bond issues until such time as there really are going to be homeowners and real houses built. And Kim is absolutely right. The only time you really need the capitalized interest is if you can't make it on the tax roll, in August of any year, because maybe you're going to do the bond issue in September. If you do the bond issue in September, you have no way to pay the debt service, and therefore you would need to capitalize. But it's always going to be a time period inside of about 18 months at max.
At the time or the formation of the district, the valuation for, I guess, the ultimate bond issue is based on valuation and then backing out what this 2% is, maximum 2% is. So as development occurs, and assuming it's a normal progression and you don't have a recession or something, generally your land values go up, but the rate methodology doesn't change. So if you have, say, and I don't know whether this is based on single family units or it's going to be based on acreage. I mean, I don't know, what do you use this on acreage now, or do you go with single family units?
So usually what they do is for undeveloped property, it's an acre, a per acre or portion of it. But for homes or condominiums and even commercial property, it would be based on a square foot of the buildings, the structures. So homes are going to have a range of special taxes based on the size of the homes. Similarly, so a 3-bedroom home is going to have a bigger impact or need of a community than a 2-bedroom home or a 4-bedroom home. They're all different, right? So the special taxes are going to be varied based on the size of the homes. And similarly with commercial properties, it's usually per square foot of commercial industrial property.
Okay.
Of the structure.
Okay. And then as far as inflators, I mean, is there a maximum inflation or is that just simply set by the maximum tax? I mean, you can go up to the maximum tax, but so you can never go past the maximum tax.
So yes, I understand. The maximum tax rate can increase annually. Generally, you never see it increase more than qualify that, excuse me. The portion of the special tax that relates to capital facilities can increase by 2% annually if you want it to. I would imagine that most development coming to your community would want that 2% increase. And that sort of matches the ad valorem annual increase, right?
Right.
The special tax that relates to services and maintenance of facilities, not relating to capital facilities, can actually increase by a different inflation rate.
Okay.
It is not limited to 2%. It's something more like the construction index or consumer price index,
okay,
or some other inflation rate. And really that's because your services that you provide are subject to some variations in annual costs. Maybe electric costs go up more than 2% a year.
Well, and as an example of what Kim's talking about on the services side, especially if it's public safety, a big component of public safety is pension, right? And so we know that the annual contributions on the benefits to those services is escalating at a much greater rate than 2 or 3%. So you want the services component piece of the special tax to be able to have an inflator that can keep up so that the city is able to provide the same level of service without negatively impacting the general fund or the other revenues of the city. We totally agree with what Kim's saying. On the facilities side, think about it like a mortgage on your house. You kind of want any debt service related to facilities to be as level as it can, because it will go down over time. The value of the houses will be going up, but you're going to know that in 20 or 25 years, you may be asking your community to support replacing those roads or replacing those facilities that originally get built. So you want to be, from a policy perspective, as conservative as you can with regards to that piece of the special tax.
Okay. On the, and just a couple, and I don't know if I misunderstood you or not. On the, you were talking about the elections can be called on the same day if all landowners agree. And this would be on a public facilities type CFD. My understanding, and maybe I misunderstood it, if you had less than 12 registered voters, it was based on the acreage, the 2/3 of the acreage would carry the vote. Or does that, am I misunderstanding something, or does it just means it couldn't happen on the same day all the landowners agree or the majority of them agree?
Okay, so 2 rules with respect to that. You have to have 100% of the landowners agree to conduct the election in a shorter time frame than you would if it was going to be an election of the qualified electors, the registered voters.
Okay.
So, and then it can be on any time that they agree. So usually they like to have it the same night we have the hearing because, everybody's there and it's a little more efficient. We only have to bother the city council with it that one night. So we have to have 100% of the landowners agree to have that election on that night. And then the election will carry favorably if 2/3 of the landowners vote in favor of the special tax and the
Okay,
bond issue.
Okay. And then my last question is on a capital facility CFD development project. Are the same and assuming you had an adjacent property with say the same type of needs, are the annexation proceedings the same or similar to the initiation proceedings?
Yes.
They are. Okay.
Yeah.
That's all the questions I have. Thank you.
I just have a couple more questions, and I want to first point out that I would love to be where Craig Hill is right now.
I know.
certainly looks like a much better place than I'm sitting in.
I worked hard for that picture.
I bet you did. My question is this. We're talking about a citywide CFD as well as Liberty Ranch CFD coming to us. What I guess the question is what does that mean to our residents or even future residents? What is that going to pay for? We've been talking a lot of legal stuff right here, and so what does that mean to the people?
So for purposes of the citywide CFD, that CFD is basically an updated version of the current CFD 2005. It is going to have a more flexible tax, I believe, and pay for more amenities or more services and maintenance than the current CFD 2005.
Okay. Kim, can I chime in for a second?
Of course.
And I think the name citywide CFD is kind of maybe confusing the issue. It's really a new services CFD that we're looking to form for new development. So it is not a CFD that's going to be applied to all properties in the city. So this is just for new development to make sure that development is paying for its maintenance needs as we go forward. So this CFD is not intended for existing residences or anything like that, just for new development. So I think the way we're trying to refer to it now is like the services CFD or the new development CFD.
Right, Chris, and I totally understood that. And the reason it says citywide is because it's every part of our city that's undeveloped at this point, and then the Liberty Ranch piece is that east area, correct? So that's why we have two different.
That's correct.
Okay.
So right, so there will be Liberty Ranch will have its own CFD. There's a couple components of it, and then this new development or service CFD will be, you're right, so citywide, and then applied to all new development going forward. And it really responds to your question about Cardoso, is that we do look at all the infrastructure needs in that development and then put cost to it and then make sure that the maintenance needs are then paid for by the homeowners in that subdivision.
Okay.
Yeah, so again, the current residents of the city are not going to be impacted by these CFDs. It's for future development, and it is in something that will help the city not recognize a deficit because of new residential development, and providing those services to that new residential development. Because providing services to residential development is very expensive, especially if it is not accompanied with the corresponding amount of sales taxes that would pay for those services that are necessitated by that development.
Right, I totally get that, and I understand that. It's been a long time since development paid for full services that the community expects. And I totally understand that. My other question is, and I don't want to drag this on too long, but my other question really is this takes care of future issues of development paying for city services. But what can we do in terms of our current situation, and is that a possibility? To go to the voters about the current situation with financing and things like that.
Certainly, you can take a CFD to your at-large voters with, if you want to pay for something, a thing, a capital facility, or if you want them to pay a special tax on their property to augment revenues for police and fire services or other services of the city. You can certainly take a CFD to your registered voters and ask for them to approve this special tax. But you will require a 2/3 majority vote of your registered voters to approve that special tax. So it is a very high threshold to get that approval.
Right. And I, as many of my colleagues know, I'm not one that's a proponent of that, but I just thought I'd ask the question because, we talk about the future, and earlier in the meeting, we all heard, we're going to have some significant obstacles here in the near future, closer to now than later. And so that is an option. And is there a difference between whether it's a specific or does it have to be a specific CFD for a specific purpose, or can it be general in nature and have a lower threshold of voter acceptance?
It cannot have a lower threshold.
Okay, so it does have to be specific and has to be 2/3. Okay. Mm-hmm. Thank you so much again for the presentation. It was very informative, and I appreciate you taking the time to join us tonight.
Absolutely.
So unless there are any other questions from the council, that concludes the presentation on the Community Facilities District process.
Kim, I have a couple of comments, a couple of questions. One thing I see in the presentation, there's a CFD is favorable to the developer. Can you a little bit explain on that?
Absolutely. It really does accelerate their ability to prepay their construction financing. So by issuing bonds for D and using that money to pay for the public facilities, they either do not have to get borrowing for construction costs for the public facilities from a commercial bank at a higher interest rate, or if they've already gotten that loan from a commercial bank and use that money to pay for construction of public facilities, they can use the bond proceeds to pay that bank loan back. And that precedes just the average rate of sale of homes. And so it accelerates that profit to the developer. So it's very important. It's a very big of their financing plan.
So you're talking about that expense, like in impact fees, they can finance, or what kind of expense?
Mm-hmm. Yes. So also with impact fees, you know, any construction cost, any public facility related charge for the development, they can put that into the CFD cost, and it really speeds up the rate at which they either don't have to borrow the money or they can repay their construction loan.
The other thing that CFD, when you develop a land and the new owner, they buy the house, so it can go to all the cost go to the new owner, right?
Yes. So the homeowner, I don't really see in my practice people not buying homes because they're in a CFD, or if there are people that don't buy homes that are in a CFD, there are fewer than there are more of. I mean, people want to buy a nice new home in a nice neighborhood and with these planned amenities. And so homeowners generally have not shied away. There was a time, I'd say 20 to 25 years ago, where it was a little more controversial, and you did hear of homeowners saying, well, we don't want special taxes, or builders being adverse to them to having a CFD because it was a sale downside to the development. But generally, we're not seeing that anymore. And the homeowner, the cost of those public facilities is now something that's not necessarily included in the cost of the mortgage that homeowner has to finance. I'm not going to say it's one for one, and I'll defer to Craig as well to chime in on that one. I don't know that you get a one-for-one benefit, because the home seller is going to try to sell the home for as much as they can, right? So you may or may not have a one-to-one benefit of public facilities impacting the sales price by being financed in a CFD. But it does alleviate some of the financing burden on a mortgage.
Thank you.
Well,
And I will add one more comment generally on that. Just as a view in the 2017 Tax Act, when there was a limitation on the amount of taxes that could be deducted from your federal income tax, one of the things that we thought we might see in the following years was a reluctance to buy homes that were subject to higher special taxes or assessment, because individuals would hit that limit of state and local taxes that could be deducted from their federal income taxes. And I don't believe that I have actually seen that come to pass. So people are still buying the homes subject to the special taxes and assessments.
To Paul's question regarding impact fees included in the CFD, that would raise a concern with me to the extent that within that 2% cap, you would have fees being paid rather than capital facilities associated with the specific project. Historically, and to my knowledge, I don't believe the city has ever included fees such as impact fees in a CFD for that specific purpose, because the public facilities have to be constructed, and either you negotiate down on whatever those public facilities are, or you allow fees to be paid. Whereas historically in the city, I know you have paid those fees at building permit or final inspection, whatever has been agreed upon. And then the CFD, those costs that were passed on to the future homeowner were only those that went into that subdivision or those that were agreed upon to serve that subdivision in order to offset costs to the general public. So I would have great reluctance in including any impact fees in a CFD for a development project. That's just my opinion.
So, and I'll address that real quickly. We do allow development impact fees to be included in the CFD with the understanding that development impact fees are going to have to be used to fund a public capital facility for whatever that impact fee is being charged. So there may be some credit being applied to that development impact fee for any particular development when the developer is going to build, you know, an intersection and all the improvements for that intersection and maybe upsize the intersection for the development. They may get some credit for that development impact fee for traffic improvements. Similarly, with park improvements and police facilities or fire facility impact fees, those certainly may be included in a CFD. One of the limitations that our firm would apply to funding any one of those impact fees is that we have to understand from the city that they have a project ready to go, that those impact fees would be in fact being used for a public capital improvement relating to that development fee within 3 years from the issuance of the bonds. So it has to, we can include the development impact fees, and this is sort of getting very technical with what we do with CFDs and how we proceed with the financing of bonds, but we do have to conclude that those diff charges go to a capital facility and that the city is going to be able to spend that money on that capital facility within 3 years of the date of the issuance of the bonds.
Okay.
Yeah.
That helps.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Kim. Any council member have any other question? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Actually, Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to say thank you, Chris, for clarifying that thing earlier about when you kept referring to the citywide facility district. I could see people squirming that were thinking, what's going on? What is this? So thank you for clarifying that with the people that are watching at home.
Thank you. You're welcome.
All right, moving along, the next agenda item is Finance Department, number 4, Technology Use Policy. Ms. Tyson.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. This item is before you. This is the Technology Use Policy. This is a follow-up to and part of the recovery of our cyber attack that we experienced. We had several professionals come in and assist us. One of the comments that we got frequently was, even though our policies were not, insufficient, they were kind of scattered. And they needed to be updated. So we have several disparate policies throughout the city having to do with technology, but not a comprehensive technology use policy. So we spent a bit of time developing this policy from comments that have been made by Department of Emergency Services of California, along with Homeland Security, along with some of our security experts that have been brought alongside us. The emphasis of this policy is to be, one, comprehensive, but also to provide a centralized IT professional perspective in collaboration with the operations and the services and programs. In other words, in this day and age, technology is a necessity to provide our operation with efficient and limited risk and consistency. So this policy aims at that. You'll see a lot of detail and yet a lot of collaboration between the IT professionals and the departments to accomplish certain security, certain consistencies throughout the policies. This policy covers everything from telephones to your desktop computer to your cell phone. It really covers all of the different areas of technology that we see in other policies throughout agencies like us, along with what we use every day in our business. This policy also will, once approved, will replace other pieces of policies. So we have something in our records management manual that talks a little bit about limited use, prohibited use, that sort of thing. These are upgraded from what those old policies were. Once this is approved, there will be some training for staff. This gives us a basis to really move forward. Plus, it gives us a basis for that training. The training will also be provided through this policy, but also through other agencies that have assisted us. This policy has been reviewed by many people, including our security experts and our labor groups. I can go through a lot of detail here, but I would prefer to just ask if there are any questions. It's a fairly long document, but if there are any questions, I'm open to that.
Claire,
Yes, sir.
I'll start it off. Yeah, it's a long document, and I was reading through it a few days ago and then reading through it again tonight. It's a lot to take in. So I ask, what would be anything significant that's been added? I know you said there was more of a consolidation of more of a scattered policy that existed previously, but what would some of the highlights be that you think that have been the more robust parts of this, or something that stands out to you that you can just summarize for us?
Absolutely. One of the things we know from the cyber attack here at the city and elsewhere is that there are certain points of entry into any system that in this day and age can be a point of compromise. And so there's a fairly good list of what's allowed and what's not allowed. And like as an example, one of the things has to do with the ability to use USBs into the system, so a thumb drive or whatever. And we understand that it's point of entry and we need to be careful. We also understand that there are virus protection software that can assist in that. We also understand that there's a need for the operation to be able to do those kinds of things. It's not just moving some file from a storage device here or there. We also have like specialized the postage machine as example. The way we gain that data into our system and it integrates is through that kind of a device. So how do we go about that? So in this policy, it describes this is prohibited except in these particular situations where an operational need is identified and IT comes up with a proposed solution. Those kinds of things are embedded over and over again in this policy where there's an operational need and then a professional coming alongside saying, well, let me see how we can do that. This also has certain authorizations that weren't there before or weren't as clear, like the city manager has the ability to kind of overrule any of this if there's conflicts. Those kinds of things were really not in these policies previously. They were more on a departmental basis.
Is there any protocol changes? And I know it's a broad term, but I'm going to narrow it way down. Is there any protocol changes relating to access by IT staff? Let me give you an example. So IT staff, wants to take over somebody's desktop for maintenance reason. Is there some kind of protocol where they have to contact the person via phone or whatever and saying, I'm going to contact, instead of just coming on and them getting a screen pop that says, would you allow, Joe Schmo, IT person to access your computer, and they click yes. So, I mean, I'm assuming there's new protocols in place regarding that.
The protocols for that have not changed. That has always been a notification in advance of any kind of pop-up. So that's always been in place. And yes, that's consistent.
Okay.
I have a quick question, Ms. Tyson. Along those same lines, and again, I read through this lengthy document. Is there a training plan being put into place to address this, either through the bargaining units and or HR or whoever would do it, so that like the situation that Councilman Farmer just raised, that is, I believe it's more of a training issue than necessarily a policy issue, and so to get our staff up to speed on all of these nuances and differences in the policy would probably be an appropriate thing to do. So that's my first question.
So on training, a couple of things I would say about that. First of all, very important going forward. We know that we can write anything we need to write, but unless people understand the context of that associated with their job, it's less than effective. So this policy starts that. We have started a training series, was what was envisioned to be a series here internally with the IT staff doing the training. They only rolled out one of those before all of this occurred. But the bright side of all of this, if there is something that has occurred, is that we have partnered up with the state of California, and they will end up coming out. Their Office of Emergency Services is going to provide some assistance to us on training. We also have some training that we have available to us through our HR training packet, and we will be utilizing that. There's one coming up, I believe it's this week or next, having to do with cybersecurity. So we'll end up with multiple types of training from multiple areas, but it has to be a focus going forward. This environment changes so quickly that training becomes the advantage.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. Like I said, I know we were doing some proactive things before this happened, and just really unfortunate timing. Just one quick question. This may be for human resources or for the city manager. Section 15 talks about violations, and then it's pretty generic as it relates to administrative and disciplinary action as well as criminal. Has this been, I don't want to say vetted because I don't know the exact language in the MOUs with the bargaining groups, and the unrepresented for that matter. But has this been gone through the meet and confer process or negotiation whatever the MOU requires?
Yes.
Okay.
It was advanced to all of them and to each of the bargaining units for review.
Okay. Awesome. I suspect they had some input because this is a document that I would think technology people put together, right? And
technology, and as with any policy that carries the import that this does, it was also reviewed by legal counsel, and just to ensure that as the policy itself was constructed, it meets those provisions of the law that we would want it to meet from a human resources standpoint, if you will.
Yeah. And I thank you, all the staff, for really embracing our outside support services at the state and local levels during this whole malware issue, as well as putting this policy together. I really think that, and I've said this for many years, but most certainly since I've been on the council, that, you know, until we realize that we really can't do everything by ourselves and on our own, especially in some of these such fast moving industries, I think until we can say that and really mean it and really, you know, look for that extra help on the outside, I think we're going to be spinning our wheels. So it looks like we're doing the right thing here and getting folks involved in getting some outside perspective. So I appreciate that.
Thank you.
I have a quick question, Claire. Just, there's a lot of language here. It's kind of, I mean, it can be a little bit kind of hard to understand, meaning like especially in the mobile device parts, there's some language like, for example, I mean, I don't know if this is pertaining to just, you know, city-owned smartphones, because it's talking about specifically city-owned devices. So for example, like council laptops or tablets. It's going in this long list about things, you know, like not using hotspots unless approved by IT. Well, I mean, I'm on a, you know, Wi-Fi right now. I'm just curious how much of this is just kind of parameter. I mean, there's a lot of specifics here that are questionable. So I don't know.
Anything that's in here that may be a little unclear or that you have specific questions on having to do with your device, you know, one of the things that's embedded in this document is that communication path back to IT. So there are times when we're going to use our devices, city-owned devices, and what we need to for our operation, and that's understood. It's also a document that's trying to speak to being cautious with what we're attaching.
Okay. Yeah, it's going to take some time to sift through, but I'm glad you guys were able to come up with something that's, you know, comprehensive, to say the least. And like Rich was saying, an important thing is just that everybody understands it, and especially the staff. So once we get that done, I think we can avoid any future situations. Thank you, Claire.
That's the goal. Yes.
Yeah, thank you, Claire. I read through most of it. Most of it just kind of seems like common sense. But I know sometimes people think, well, let's play a game on my lunch hour, or let's do this, and that lets a lot of things in. So I really appreciate you taking the time. I think it took, I know you've been wanting to do it for a while, so things like this take forever. So now that we have it in place, hopefully we can go from there. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I'm glad somebody likes doing that kind of work. It looks very tedious. Thank you, Claire.
You're welcome. The IT manager was critical in this process.
Kurt, I don't think she said she liked it.
Somebody had to do it.
It was necessary.
Hey, thank you, Claire. You're doing a wonderful job on that policy. Thanks a lot. The only thing I will ask city manager about the training, you know, we don't want anybody does not have any employee, anybody does not have the knowledge and not doing the right thing. So
that's right. We want to make sure that we're providing everyone.
Right, exactly. So everybody aware of that, what we're doing before we did a change, so we follow the change.
Yep.
Thank you, Tom. So, do we have a motion to approve this resolution adopting a new technology use policy?
So moved.
Again.
Motion by Vice Mayor Lozano, second by Council Member Farmer. Tina, may I have a roll call vote, please?
Vice Mayor Lozano,
Aye.
Councilmember Farmer,
Aye.
Councilmember Campion,
Aye.
Councilmember Lamson,
You're on mute.
Aye.
Mayor Sandu.
Aye. Motion carried 5-0. Thank you. Next agenda item I, communication. Tina, any communication?
Nothing at this time.
J, any city clerk report?
Nothing.
Next one, a comment by staff. Mr. Hagland, if you do me a favor, could you ask all your staff if they want to make any comment, please?
Certainly. Claire, any additional finance comments?
No, nothing. Thank you for your support of IT.
Chris Arias, any additional community development comments?
No additional comments. Thank you.
Armando Solis, Parks and Rec.
No, thank you.
Chief Sockman, any comments from police?
Just a couple. First, I just want to thank the police department staff. Everybody's had to come into work and they're just doing an outstanding job. I'm very, very proud of the efforts and everything that they're doing. And then secondly, I'd like to thank the community. Galt has been amazing under the restrictions and the stay-at-home order. I listen to what's going on in our region, and I think that here in Galt, we are very, very fortunate, and our citizens have just done a great job.
Thank you very much. Mike Selling, anything from Public Works tonight?
Yeah, just a couple of quick ones. First off, the pool work started last week, and the contractor hopes to be done probably by mid to late May. We did find some additional cracking. Hopefully that won't slow them down too much, but anyway, that's getting going. And then I did get a bit of a response for Councilmember Farmer's question about B Street earlier. There is the need for some sewer and water line upgrades in B Street. So we definitely would want to do that before we do any pavement work. So it wouldn't be throwaway kind of thing. So, but I'll also follow up on the status of it as far as the condition, and maybe there's some, some, I guess, Band-Aid type treatments we can do to kind of keep it in somewhat decent shape while we program the water and sewer line work. So that's it. Thanks.
Thank you. Stephanie Van Stein, anything from HR tonight?
No update this evening. Thank you.
And then we also have our erstwhile city attorney. I'm not sure if there's anything from you tonight, Kimberly.
Nothing too big, but I think you touched on it in the COVID-19 update, that one thing that we're obviously watching is the federal legislation, because the smaller cities have been left out of the packages so far. There is the HR 6467 Coronavirus Community Relief Act that we are hoping will provide some relief, and actually some relief from revenue losses, which we haven't seen. So we are watching that and will provide future updates.
Very good, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Hagland. Comment by City Council member, Vice Mayor Lozano.
Yeah, I just have a couple of quick things. As we were unfolding the new technology policy, something popped into my mind. When I first came on the council, I was handled a USB drive that had some documents on it. One of those documents was, the copy of the Brown Act, I believe, and some other policy documents. But one of them had to do with conduct of council members and what was expected of us over time. And so I know I brought that up a few months back, and I'd really like, if understanding we're kind of in a weird situation here doing this telecommuting for meetings, but I don't want that to get lost. And I think that's going to be an item that I'd like to bring back at some point to have a full discussion with public input on in the near future. So it's kind of twofold. One, if there's some time on our agendas coming up, I would ask my colleagues to to ask to have that placed on the agenda. But the second piece, I think, is maybe having whatever those documents are, and they may already be there, but have them placed on, at least on our website, so we have access to them outside of just a dump drive that we're supposed to cautiously be using. And then the second thing is I want to thank the police department and well, really all employees, but I know the police department's been pretty busy the last several weeks on some major crimes and some ongoing issues, and it's not always easy as watching an hour show of CSI and having the crimes be solved. And so they're really working hard. I know I've talked to the chief intermittently here and there about just about what we can do in the public, and he did a great video the other day talking to the public. So thank you to the police department. And this last week was National Telecommunications Worker Week. I think that's what it's called. And so we like to thank our dispatchers and call takers of the police department. And that's all I have.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Council Member Camping.
Nothing more tonight. Thank you.
Council Member Lamson.
Yeah, I just want to thank the city staff that's faithfully working. I got a message from someone today that they miss seeing me around, and we're not seeing everybody around. I'm glad we're still working in social distancing and the city business is going on, and I know it's a little tough. I got word that the Galt High storage container was broken into in the baseball storage container, and pretty much took everything of value, cleaned them out. So I just want to encourage the public. People should not be wandering around right now, especially with our lockdown, breaking into things. If you see something you think looks suspicious, call the police department. This is perfect time to catch the vandals and things like that. And if you guys see anything on Facebook or anywhere for sale, like a pitching machine, things like that, please report it. So that's about it.
Thank you. Council Member Farmer.
Yeah, I just want to piggyback on kind of what Paige said. First of all, I want to thank the police department. I know they're out there working hard. I know, there's a lot of chatter in the community. We've seen some petty crime instances and some vandalism and things. And I think the police are very tentative to it. And, it's a priority for them. They want to get to the bottom of this thing. But with that, it's going to take the community to help. And I keep circling back to this. I said this last meeting, we have a shelter in place order, and we have, all cities have a curfew of 10 p.m. And although that's not something that we typically enforce, I really think it's, the community's responsibility, especially if you have parents, that if you have young teens under 18 that live with you, there's no reason why they should be out late at night. We need to keep those people inside. That's just going to further help the police department to focus in on the people that are out late at night that shouldn't be. And so to help their efforts, you need to be doing your part as parents and keeping your kids in at night. And so we can, get to the bottom of some of this stuff. And if you see something like Councilman Lamson said, if you see something, say something. I've had a lot of people come to me saying this has happened and this has happened. And then with a follow-up with them, they'd said, well, no, I didn't report it. I just think it was a waste of time or whatever. I mean, if you don't report it, we don't know what's going on. And it may seem like a waste of time, but it's not. And so you need to report it. And if you see something in the community, speak up and, be vigilant out there because it's going to take a community effort. And then the second thing is I just want to thank all the people of Galt that are frequenting all the businesses. We had a conversation with some fellow business owners. And although, we're all kind of just, making tweaks to the way we do business and try to do what we can to get through this, the community has been really good about, patronizing our small businesses and it's appreciated. So on behalf of all those business owners that don't have, TV time to say so, I would like to say thanks on their behalf. So that's it for me. Thanks.
Thank you, Sean. I just wanted to say to our city staff, thank you for working hard through our current health crisis. We appreciate you to our community, stay safe, and continue practicing social distancing. This is a hard time for everyone. I also want to remind you, with the recent increase in crime, it seems, if you see somebody, say something. Say something. Call to Galt Police Department. A special thank you for Galt PD. They're doing an excellent job. Please contact Galt Police Department any suspicious activity. We had to work together as a community. Lastly, I would like to, me and my family, if you could spread the word, we are delivering free grocery to our senior citizen and those in a high-risk group due to COVID-19. If you any interested or know somebody our community needed, please call me and text me. Stay safe, stay home. God bless everybody during COVID-19. Thank you. I would like to join the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night, all.
Good night.
Bye.
Good night.
Night.
Good night.